Yes, let me just do that. Okay. Hi, Emily. How are you?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us why we're here today.
Well, my name is Emile. I'm one of the owners of Amoritas Vineyards in Lake Leelanau, Michigan, up in the Leelanau Peninsula. I own it with my brother, Matt, and my dad, Michael. And we're really still very small, family-run winery. We're all out there in the vineyard, doing a little bit of wine production, still in the tasting room, so we all work together. And what we specialize in is our estate-grown white wines. So those range from dry to sweet, sparkling to still, and the grapes that we're growing right now are Riesling, Chardonnay, Pinot Gris, Pinot Blanc, Auxerrois, and Moscato Tonel.
Okay.
Yeah. And then as the winery side, we do also have a couple different ciders available, some red wines, both from Michigan fruit and from some fruit that's from out of state, and cherry wine, because you can't have a winery in Michigan without a cherry wine. So.
Sure. So having a winery that kind of focuses, from what I understand, primarily on white grapes, that's really fun, especially in a cold climate. Why that? Why that?
So for both my brother and I, we were fortunate enough to really grow up in a family that taught us about wine early on. So, I mean, I remember going to tasting rooms with my parents. There was one time that we were in Italy and my brother and I were just off playing hide and seek in the caves, and my parents were off tasting with their friends. Feel like they wouldn't let us do that now, who knows? So we were exposed to a lot of wine culture early on, and that a sense of place was really important in making wines. And when I was heading off to college to study plant science, my dad had finally found a Michigan wine that he loved. He'd been trying them periodically. He was from California, and he hadn't found anything he liked. And then he tried it was Peninsula Cellars when Brian Albrecht was the winemaker there, and it was a Pinot Blanc. And he was like, oh, this is great wine. And he started trying more of the wines around the area, and we started really getting into Michigan wines. And at the same time, I was at school at Cornell studying in the Finger Lakes and getting to know the wine industry out there. And so I think a lot of my formative years learning about the grape industry were spent learning about some of the great white wine grapes. And when I went to UC Davis to get my master's in viticulture and enology, I mean, I saw some great things that you can do with cabs, and some amazing things that you can do with those nice, long, dry California summers. And we still wanted to do our winery here in Michigan. And it doesn't have the advantage of that heat or that really long season, but it does have this season that lets you get this beautiful acidity in the white wines. And we really wanted to play with that and have the challenges of really fighting the season. I mean, when you're in a cold climate viticulture, you never know what that year is going to give you, and it's not going to be the same from one vintage to the next. And so we really wanted to start out playing with some of the best grapes from Alsace and from Germany, and to really express some of that history of the old world, but put kind of a new world Michigan spin on it. So that was the inspiration. And I just really love the flavors we've been getting out of the whites that we have so far. But we are definitely going to be planting some reds in the future. Next year we're planting some Gamay, but yeah, Michigan white wines are definitely where my heart lies for grapes.
Good. Excellent. Well, I've got two in front of me here. Where should I start?
I would start with the Fascinator.
All right. It's on my left. So a dry Muscat. Tell me a little bit about the inspiration behind this wine.
So when we were initially choosing the grape varieties that we wanted to grow, we really wanted to grow the noble grapes of Alsace. So Riesling, Pinot Gris, Pinot Blanc, Muscat, and Gewürztraminer. And the only one that I don't have planted yet is the Gewürztraminer. It's going to go on a hill that's a little bit further out on the property, so it's in the 5-year plan, but we're not there yet. But the Muscat, there aren't that many people growing Muscat Autumnal, so we had to search a little bit to find a nursery that had the clone here in the States, but we found it, and there was some concern that it wouldn't survive the winters. And it survived all of our winters so far, but it's definitely one of my more finicky grape varieties. It doesn't like our cold springs. It really loves that heat, and it does get that full ripeness of flavor relatively early in the season. So it's one of the first few we pick. Like Riesling as a grape, it is a grape that you can taste what the finished wine is going to taste like in those grapes. It has all of those terpenes and the phenolic compounds that really come out in the finished wine.
It's pretty exceptional. I mean, for an early afternoon here in California, this could be a great porch pounder, as some would say. It's refreshing, and so I did not chill these to a regular extent. I tend to like to taste even my whites a little more close to room temperature, just so I can actually taste, and the cold isn't just shading all the potential flavors. But this is phenomenal, crisp and clean, tons of melon skin, little tropical note. It's really refreshing. I can see this being, a prime example of cool climate Muscat. It's really nice.
Thanks.
That's nice. What's sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. The vineyard that this grows in is our lower field. So we get some good sun accumulating there. And this is going to come into play with the next wine that we're going to taste, our Mary's Folly. In the center of the field, there's a maple tree. And my mother, Mary, who was really involved at the start, she refused to let us cut that tree down when we were planting the vineyard.
Sure.
And so after some long drawn-out family conversations about it, we agreed that the tree would stay, and we named that vineyard Mary's Folly. So it's a wine that we put into our field blend, and then we also try to do this single varietal, but it's definitely one of the wines that we do some of the fewest cases of. It's not a huge producer for us because it can be a little marginal. So we only made about 100 cases of it in 2019.
Well, that's nice. What's the blend? Can you tell me?
On the Mary's Folly? So for 2017, that was a true field blend. So we just picked everything in the field in 2 days and tossed it all in the tank.
Nice.
From the tonnage reports, this one was dominated by Oxala. It's about half Oxala, and then about 30% Pinot Blanc and 20% Muscat.
Explains the mouthfeel. Oxawa is just one of those fun grapes that
Yeah.
people don't know, but it's used a lot in blends. It's used a lot in cold climate wines. It's really nice. Again, this one, if I were to kind of say that the fascinator is melon skin, I would say this is the full melon, just tossed in there.
Mm-hmm.
Really
I
good.
like that description.
Yeah. Some stone fruit. I mean, I'm far be it from me to describe your wines, but it's very nice. Again, very refreshing. Very what I would expect from these particular grapes. Not ridiculously acidic, just really well balanced, and that's what I love about these wines so far. We opened the Riesling last night. We had it with, please forgive me, we had it with burgers and fries, and
Hey, it's a good pairing for it.
it was really, really tasty. I thought it was a really good pairing. And so yeah, we made our get us some homemade burgers and had some seasoned we call them waffle fries, and I thought it was a great pairing. It was really well put together. So
Yeah. For pairings for these two wines, the Fascinator goes really well with things that have some stronger flavors, or I find it pairs really well with Thai food. There's enough of a floral note in the wine that it really brings in some of those complementary pairing notes to it. So really brings out the flavors well, especially anything with a peanut base. Or it's actually got enough power to it to stand up to like a strong blue cheese, which can be kind of hard to pair for wines. And the Mary's Folly pairs pretty well with most things. So
I wouldn't mind seeing that Fascinator with maybe some bacon wrapped figs that are stuffed with blue cheese.
That'd be good.
That smoke with the kind of skin of an apricot thing that it's got going on, and then the Mary's Folly. Yeah, I would frankly, I'd love to see that with, God, a lot of things, but I mean, baked brie. If you can do, and we did it the other day. Roasted some nuts with some spice, the little strawberry glaze, and baked brie with some puff pastry.
This is a really dangerous conversation to be having just before dinner.
Absolutely, always is. So, I mean, both incredible wines. I'm looking forward to opening the rest of the the rest of the wines. So, okay, so we all know that the world has changed quite a bit over the last 4 or 5 months.
Just a little.
At this point, we're getting into harvest here pretty soon. I'm curious, how has COVID-19 and what's going on now currently globally, how has it affected your ability to get out and grab the grapes and get them in?
So we have a little bit of a delay on our harvest versus California. We've had a nice hot summer so far, so it's not as bad as it is some years, but we're a solid month behind you guys. We do pick a little bit less ripe. I'll pick most of my whites between, I'd say, 20 and 23 bricks. And our harvest usually runs from, I'd say, mid-September to mid to late October. And I think that'll be around the same timing this year. Where that can be a real challenge is with labor. We have a crew that has been up here and working since really March. So we haven't had to worry too much, but we have to really watch turnover in crews, and because we can't get replacements in very easily right now. Because all of our replacement crews normally would come from Florida or Texas. So there's a lot of kind of planning out who's going to be picking what. For some of the grapes that we sell, normally we'd be looking at securing those crews about 3 weeks from now. And everybody's trying to secure their harvest crews right now because we know it's going to be a little bit more of a push because there's less labor to do it, and we don't know how things are going to change in the next 8 weeks right now. And in the tasting room side, in Michigan, sometimes we have a great long warm fall, nice and dry. It's great for harvesting grapes. People will still use outdoor seating for that. But if we have a chilly fall, that can shut down pretty quick, and then we have a lot more challenges to deal with how we're going to do tasting room service in the fall here. So there's a lot of moving pieces that we're looking at, where we might have to have different staff coming in and a whole different bunch of levels. And as the weather gets colder, you start getting, regular common cold symptoms. So do people stay home during harvest because of the common cold? Not in a normal year. In a normal year, you toss back some cough syrup and work another 12 hours to get those grapes in. And this year, it's going to be a hard line. If you're coughing, you're going home. So it'll be a really interesting season.
Yeah, well.
Okay. Yeah.
That's okay. I literally hit record, and then all of a sudden, what does the future, I know it's hard, nobody has a crystal ball these days. What does the future look like for you guys? What do you hope, for the next, let's just say 6 months, to get us to the end of the year?
So we were just talking about that in our weekly staff meeting today, because we're talking about October and harvest and what is that going to look like this year. And I kind of jokingly threw out, I think we should basically have plans A through F ready to go. Because we really don't know how things are going to pan out right now. I know that it's going to be different than our normal winter season. We're not going to have some of the bigger events that we would normally have going into the winters. This is a very seasonal wine business up here. We see the bulk of our customers in July, August, and October. And so if everything is deeply shut down in October, that could really hurt us. Fortunately, we have some great loyal customers that have been ordering wine and have really gotten us through this, especially our wine club members. We do have wine club shipments going out throughout the fall and the winter, and so that is a little bit of safety there for us. We have curbside. We're lucky enough that we can maintain a lot of separation in our tasting room building, just the way it's built. So we're hopeful that we're going to be able to weather it. I can't look at the news right now and go into the worst case scenarios, because it's just not a great path to go down as a business owner. So I think right now we're trusting that people are going to continue being responsible. I think we've had a pretty solid reaction from the state of Michigan in terms of being willing to shut things down before things get really bad here. And that means that, so far things haven't gotten that bad, especially up here in northwestern Michigan, but it also means that, we could get shut down again in October or November. So I think, we try really hard to make sure that we're keeping things sanitary and that we're following all the rules and wearing masks and making sure our customers wear masks and trying to provide a lot of different options for people on all different levels. We're still doing curbside for people that want it, still doing wine shipping. And I think we're just going to keep kind of plugging away and hope that we all get through this together and, Yeah, I think there have been some benefits. We've really been able to see customers come in and do wine flights and really get to relax and enjoy more of an appointment tasting. And I'm hoping that some of these things will be able to continue going into the future. So, there will be some positives from this, but yeah, right now it's just a day at a time.
One day at a time. That's probably the best to be. So, well, Emily, it was a pleasure to have you on and talking about Michigan cool climate wines and your exceptional wines. I've got them on my desk. It's going to be an interesting couple of days for me, just kind of working my way through them.
Awesome.
Going to be a lot of fun meetings coming. So I'm looking forward to that. Thanks so much for coming on, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. That was a lot of fun.
Cheers. And you can find all of the links to buy and all the links to the winery below in the YouTube chat. All right. Cheers.
Cheers.